Welcome everybody. I want to introduce Tony, who will be running the evening, because Tony's got the heads up on everything and how to structure things, how to structure the meeting. Now, I want to introduce Tony for those who haven't met him. Tony's only been with us 12 months and he's leaving us. Came at a very opportune moment when we were being really pelted by Queensland fruit fly, and brought with him a lot of experience, and we've used that experience to develop, in coalition with the Centre for Excellence under the disease directorship, and using the entomologists like David Williams, and these people, and he's put together, with a huge input of his own, a package that is about to go to the government. That will go to the government tomorrow or Monday. So it'll be put in the minister's hands, and if we don't get up, if we don't get the money we want, it won't be through lack of trying, and it won't be through lack of input from Tony. Now, with Tony leaving, we've been on the search for new IDOs. We've picked up Peter Bursack with a wealth of experience. Peter's over here. He will be putting on a presentation this evening. His forte is in chemical. He's done a lot in the registration and marketing of chemicals throughout Europe. He also has another strength in integrated pest management. And I would like also to introduce you to Veronique Frolich. Veronique doesn't speak a word of English, but you can understand the French if you listen very carefully. Veronique is a stone fruit grower at Cobram, and she has taken up a 0.6 position at Fruit Growers Victoria. And Veronique also is quite passionate about integrated pest management, and also another one of her pet likes is marketing. So we've got two very good people that we will be going on with at Fruit Growers Victoria. So now I'd like to hand it over to Tony. Tony has structured the evening and will be running the evening, and he will invite our other IDOs forward to speak on their particular strengths. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Gary. You probably blew my bags up too much, mate. It wasn't me that did the business plan. Not that smart. All right. What I've got planned for tonight is it's more about, I've experienced many hail events in other industries, not in the plum fruit industry, obviously. I've only been here 12 months, but in citrus and wine grapes and table grapes, I've experienced quite a number of them over the years. And I know how hard it is for growers to come up with the reality of not having an income. If you're really badly hit, as I understand a few of you guys are, and who do you turn to and what do you do? It's a really stressful period for you. And what I was just trying to do is some of the strategies that I've employed in the past to try and help growers build some hope and some strategies as to how to look at taking your business forward for the next couple of months, past harvest, and then from a business sense into the next 4 or 5 years. So tonight all I was just going to do is give a brief overview of the event happening. Bear with me because this I just did about half an hour ago. Give an assessment of what we've collected from people such as yourselves, sending in your data, what we've done ourselves with assessments of where people have had damage, and we've also fortunately been given some information from SPC with their assessments as well. So it gives us a bit of a perspective of what levels of damage from a regional point of view, especially from the pear side of things, because so much of it is grown within this region. And we have a huge influence on how it's sold across the nation domestically. From that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the priorities for a grower, what you need to consider. Peter will come in, talk a little bit about pests and diseases, just so as you're right up to speed with what you can do on farm. Sort of an assessment method, because it's too early to tell. It's just happened 4 or 5 days ago. Some crops are well and truly halfway there, especially the stone fruit, the early stone fruit. They're going to have to be treated differently to something like pears, where they're thumbnail and fingernail size, and there's still a long way to go and a long a lot of things can happen within the next few weeks. And the other thing is, people think that they might not have experienced some hail. My experience with hail is the small, fine rice hail that you don't see unless you're actually out in it. Would be just as damaging from a quality point of view to the surface of the fruit. At the moment, you mightn't see it. As that fruit gets bigger, all of a sudden you do an assessment, think, where the hell did this come from? And you may have been hit. So it pays to do an assessment now, get a bit of a feel. It's hard to give it a true assessment, but go back and do it a month later, and you'll get a real feel for where it's at. We'll talk a bit about the market tolerance of the affected fruit, the viability of the remaining fruit, a bit of decision making on fruit income versus some rough broad expenses, and how you would work out what's viable and what's not viable. I'm open to people giving me some feedback there, because if you think I'm wrong, say so. And some financial considerations and support for business, and that's why we've got Tom and Chris here from the Financial Counselling Service to give a bit of a spiel with that. And Centrelinkers, we've contacted them as well. Unfortunately, they couldn't get someone here tonight, but they're willing to listen to anybody that's in financial strife to go and see them as well. And then just at the end of the meeting, just wanted to just touch on about where to next and what approach we should take as a organisation and as a region, with growers that had the affected fruit, but also growers that didn't get affected, because we know how indiscriminate hail can be. So first up, I'll get Rebecca just to sort of give us a bit of an overview of the event itself, and give us a bit of a perspective.
I'm just going to give a really brief overview of about hail and thunderstorms, what happened last Sunday, and just one slide on some of the wrong products which might be useful. So I'm from Melbourne University. I'm based here predominantly. I work in climate change research space, but my background is in meteorology and climatology. So really quickly, I mean, hail comes from thunderstorms, severe thunderstorms, and how they come about. Well, you need some sort of instability in the atmosphere, so that's warm lower level and cooler upper level, so it creates that uplift. You also need some moisture, warm cloud. You need a trigger of some kind to snap off and get into action. So that can be a front, or it could be topography going uphill, or it can be daytime heat, which is why we often get them in the late afternoon. So here, topography is not really much of an issue. So it's either going to be a front or daytime heat. And you also need this idea of wind shear, which is wind directions in different wind directions. So you can see here, you've got your updrafts and your downdrafts, so this could be a front coming through. And then you've got wind going in a different direction up here. So it's taking that moisture away, and it allows more and more to go up to develop, so it doesn't get saturated at the top. Okay? And also, this cold draft, by having these two different directions of wind, you can keep the updrafts coming the whole time, so it doesn't get cut off by the downdrafts of the cold front coming through. So that's just the basic physics. It's just wind shear and thermodynamics, basically. So we understand that pretty well. And they can spin and create tornadoes as well. So how does the hail form? Well, in these updrafts, it goes up into the upper atmosphere, it's up 10 kilometres up, and it freezes and comes down. Those updrafts are so strong, they get pushed back up again. So they get coated with water again, and and they get bigger and bigger each cycle. So the stronger the updrafts are, the more cycles and the bigger the hailstone's going to be. So this picture here, you can see, it looks a bit like a donut, and you can see each layer that's gone on top of it. So that's how the hail forms, and then it'll fall out as we found out on Sunday. So I've just taken the mean sea level pressure map from our event. So what you can see is this trough through here, this low level trough. So that was our trigger. That's what got us going. And we've got a high over here, bringing some moisture and warm air down into the region. So those are sort of the basic conditions, and you've got a cold front behind it as well on the top. So those were the conditions that led up to the event, and they're not uncommon in this area, as I'm sure people are well aware. So I'm sure everybody's had a quick look on the Bond website when this was coming through. So this is where we are, and it's quite a small event. There it comes there. So compared with the other activity in the area, it was quite small as thunderstorms are. So these radars measure precipitation, so they can be hail or not. So that's it coming through again. And then it basically went past the narrow and then it dissipated. So it was pretty small, but damaging nonetheless. So the last thing I sort of wanted to talk about is I guess the difficulty is you can maybe predict thunderstorms, but you can't necessarily predict whether they're going to have hail or not. You don't know where they're going to drop it, and you're not necessarily sure when it's going to happen. They're really, really small scale, hours and kilometres, which is much smaller than what we usually operate with when we talk about satellite images. We've got a really stochastic weather system, it's really random, and that's really inherently difficult to predict and manage. But BOM's doing some interesting things. So they've got a pilot program up in southeast Queensland, and what they're trying to do is track thunderstorm pathways. So this is what the radar looks like, and this is what they're saying the directions of the thunderstorms are going. So they can get 30-minute warnings. This is more for, for people who can react and manage, and they've got 30 minutes warning in this space. But I still think it could be useful straight after an event to find out where that track went. You can use that historical data immediately. I think you could also use it as a bulk analysis and look for typical pathways through a region. Of course, it's still thunderstorms, it's not hail. And if you're talking about moving into the future, then past isn't always an indicator.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I think this is one.
To me, I've just asked Rebecca to just do something along those lines because for me, I can remember when the telephone used to be on the passageway wall, and that was the only phone you had in the house. Now it's just completely different. So technology can really rapidly pick up where there's a need, and sometimes it's just about identifying it. Someone that's really clever in this sphere can come up with something. So from something like this, what you want is some historical data and layers, and you can start using this going into the future. So, for you guys, when it comes to putting in a new variety and all the rest of it, you do a lot of investigation into looking at the new variety. But, how much thought do we give? Are we in a hail belt? Do we know? You go and plant in a new area. Has it been hit by hail in the past? Nobody really knows. You just go and ask the oldest person that's been there, and hopefully he remembers, or he or she remembers. So that's sort of, it's a really loose way of trying to create a business plan. So this is something that I think will be into the future, and I just want to just introduce it. So thanks, Rebecca. So like I said before, just had Rebecca just give her overview. I'll have Veronique just come up and give me her results of what she found with input from you guys that you've sent in via FGV as well as SPC.
That's true. I have two sets of information regarding the very first results of the assessment of the hail damage. You may remember that we have, through Projectra, sent to you a request for some basic information about your own assessment of hail damage, the variety, the surfaces and severity of the damage. 8 growers sent me back their documents today, and those 8 growers combined cover a surface of 350 of orchards. For the stone fruits, it appears that they are really the very first, the worst affected. You can see that the severity has been rated 3.6 out of the 4 options, from 0 being no damage to 4 being totally wiped out. And the percentage of the fruit damage is very high, 76%. On the other extremity, the apples, although less affected in terms of severity, you can see that they are still very close to the 50%. And the pears stays in between with a severity mark of 3 out of 4 and 65% of the fruit damage. SPC has given us some assessment as well. So here, what can we see? We can see that apples and nectarines have not been assessed, or SPC do not work a lot with those fruit, or do not take a major intake of those fruits. I have highlighted here the 4 regions that SPC have in their books, between Armona, Shape 3, Shape 4, and Golden and Murray Valley, and we will recognize where your orchards are. I have highlighted that the highest percentage in terms of damage fruit, in terms of ton lost, are 53% for the pears. And amongst the stone fruit, the apricot seems to have suffered the most, with 49% of the tons of the production being lost. I think also what is worthwhile to, and very sad indeed to highlight, is that the plums, the third loss, and the pears in Armona reaching the 20% loss. So I have really had a saddest moment in my life in terms of presenting results to growers and being myself a plum grower. I can feel very much for you. So that gives a picture of what was being done so far.
Thanks, Darlene. So the picture says there is, okay, most of you guys will be in these areas, that's why you're here tonight. So we're not telling you something that you don't know, but from a Golden Valley point of view, this is what sort of impacts as something nationally, and obviously some growers have had a fair amount of loss with their early stone fruit as well. So just what I want to just talk about is the fruit itself, and what I should do, I'll just go back one. And what I might do is get you to come up there and just talk about the pest and diseases. And then I'll lead into this and stay. Peter's really experienced with this.